Tomorrow tells the tale, old or new politics. Millions of Americans have cast their votes during the last several months to select their candidate for the presidential Democratic nomination. But the big test comes this Tuesday. The question is whether Texans and Ohioans accept the politics of the future or the past. It's quite simple, really. I have received many an email from people who argue that a return to the Clinton years would not be a bad thing. My answer has been that while generally the Clinton presidency was a success, its paradigm should already be public policy. For example, healthcare reform has been part of our national agenda since the Truman administration. The demand for change in environmental policy and climate change has been talked about by every president since Jimmy Carter. The so-called Riley model for educational reform has created a teach-to-the-test mentality, and Dewey's notion of good citizenship as well as extracurricular activities have fallen by the wayside as our public education system becomes more and more underfunded. The illegal invasion of Iraq has taken its toll on lives and is draining resources from our domestic policy agenda. As I've written in this space before, the 2008 presidential race has very stark similarities to the 1968 race. The first campaign where I served as a Kennedy and later a McCarthy volunteer. The late Senator Hubert Humphrey became the nominee. He ran a traditional bread-and-butter campaign domestically, and with regard to foreign policy, he supported the war in Vietnam, the old domino theory. Times were different, but they were not. While Humphrey spoke to those tried-and-true bread-and-butter issues, Nixon talked about a silent majority, which was a reaction to the counterculture. He talked about today's national security concern as a domestic one and dubbed it law and order, code for black criminal conduct. This racial profiling still, driving while black, exists in many American communities. I use the Nixon-Humphrey example because I believe the old adage that time is the parent of truth. Of course, we all know Nixon won, and surprisingly in some ethnically urban election districts in New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, as well as other metropolitan areas, George Wallace won a plurality of the votes, and each vote for Wallace was a ballot cast for Nixon. Hubert Humphrey lost in a squeaker. Then came no secret plan to end the war, incursions into Cambodia and Laos, and crises in government that still reverberate in the cynical view held by most Americans of politicians and of our government institutions. Do we once and for all want to repudiate Watergate, Whitewater, the Monica Lewinsky debacle, impeachment, and both the right and left-wing political industries that have subverted the notion of think tank, public interest law firm, and nonpartisan politics? In his play, The St. Joan, George Bernard Shaw explains all societies are founded on intolerance, and all improvement is founded on tolerance. The law of God is the law of change, and when the churches set themselves against change, as such, they are setting themselves against the law of God. Shaw's sentiments do not only adhere to religion, but to other institutions of our civil society. So where are we? And what does all this have to do with tomorrow's decision? We are, simply put, at a turning point. It's a pretty good place to be. The question we must answer is, are we going to stick with what we know, the divide and conquer politics of the past, or try something unique for a change? Are we willing to put special interest aside, for all of us, in our own way, confront our own utilitarian calculus, and vote for national unity rather than division? Which candidate emboldens us to make this choice is up to you to decide. I've taken the liberty of rerunning a comment that has received wide web attention for your information and edification. Again, this is Joe Garcia for reform@squarespace.com. reform@squarespace.com. The email address is reform@gmail.com. reform@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and your attention, and if you live in Texas or Ohio, get out there and vote. Vote for change. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.